What's up, Headspaces? VJ, the brother from the Ancient Mother. Yet another Headspace album review. Now, if you've been paying attention to some of the activities happening in hip-hop this year, undoubtedly the two provinces in South Africa that have been pushing power, potency, talent, skill have been Pretoria and Cape Town. So much so that off the record, Dakeza and I have been talking about which province is better than which. Because it's hip hop and we always love to add a competitive level just for the healthy growth of the movement and the culture. But that aside, yet another Cape Town artist who is kicking in the door and introducing himself to a greater audience by literally doing what most rappers do, packing their bags and going to Johannesburg. Which again, question mark on that. In 2022, is it still necessary for artists to migrate to the economic capital, so to speak, of the country in order for them to have their art acknowledged on the broadest level possible? Doesn't this seem kind of like a 90s trope of, Bege Goli? Aren't we in different times where the power of your smartphone, the resurgence or rather emergence of movements like TikTok have created an almost instant fixation with the cult of personality? I think there are more ways to explore succession, and I don't want to say success as if it's one step, because it really is a progressive flow. It's a development. It's like any organism. It grows and it has moments where it dips and it has moments where it concaves and moves up. We once did an episode about making it as a process, not an instant goal that you reach in the end and you go, Mama, I made it, but making it as an everyday thing. You decide how you want to make it by understanding what you make in the first place, who you're making it for, and what are the best tools available for you to make this beautiful art that you want to call your own. And I have the blessing to share with people in a way that's going to bring back some sustainability. So zap into talented Cape Town MC who felt the need to move to Johannesburg and hooked up with, I guess, one of the most influential hit makers in the hip-hop circle in South Africa. Somebody whose legacy still really much echoes with a lot of potential, MT the Hustler. And I don't know, it's weird because it feels like Lolli Native and MT's camaraderie is something that is in and of itself a bit unstable. We don't know where it might go. Is this going to be another Flashy Kumkani Part 2? I don't know. I really want to talk to MT and find out what's going on in his mind, because seemingly he's willingly just opening his arms up for talented new artists who he really believes in. Because in this album, iVangeli, which really, as the namesake, is Lolli Native's gospel of truth, it feels like a man standing at the podium as Shumayeza in ways that echo, if you're from the streets, you'll know what I mean when I say Amakwicho, I say Lokshini. A lot of these songs are written and sung in ways where the hooks are kind of reminiscent of that boyhood sing-along camaraderie of coming together and believing in yourself. He's got the typical street narratives of speaking for both the hustler and the criminal and mirroring them to each other and showing us that whether it's legal or illegal, the spirit is the same. Capitalism drives us to a place where we want to survive and thrive by any means necessary. And if we question the means, I guess we've also got to question the end. And what is Lolli Native's end? Lolli Native wants an end where he is swimming in a pile of money and he's able to become the typical Gyan archetype. This is a Xhosa man, and a proud one at that. And the thing about proud Xhosa men is that they hold their value in their ability to be able to provide for their families, the people who basically groom them to become the men that they are today. So with that kind of a narrative, there's obviously a retrospective look at the people in his life who have made Lolli the person that he is, the man that he is today. The album is opened up by an interlude where his mother is really encouraging and speaking to him, and woven into this album is also a kind of a nostalgic aspiration for understanding the core of what culture is. We live in times where there's been an interesting kind of upflux of attention on being true to self. Aesthetically speaking, the natural hairstyles are in fashion. The African trend is moving in a direction where global Africanism, Neo-Africanism, Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, post-colonial engagement with where Black identity is being situated in the world right now as far as pop culture is concerned. These things are at the bleeding edge of the culture conversation, and Lolli Native's album also taps into that. This is a man who's really kind of outside of his whimsical youth days and is still young enough to be able to enjoy his life, but is now old enough to be able to slow down a little bit and ask himself, what are the important things? What are the things that he can emerge with that can fundamentally become the guiding light for his manhood, for his sense of humanity, and for his prosperity? So this is what the album is about. It feels very rich in its sonic texture, minimalistic, kind of that old school get your grind on, success, prosperity rap, which reminds me of like Rick Ross in his early days. So it's that punch that you can kind of blast in your car, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to repeat all the time in a club, unless you've got people who are kind of over 30 and are enjoying themselves in the club by saying hands in the air if you've been broke. So the gospel of Lolli Native, iVangeli Lolli Native, is basically prosperity. And for him, prosperity means knowing your business, minding your business, and taking care of your business. And this is a theme that resonates through all of these songs, whether he's talking about his mother, whether he's talking about what the serum for the soul is on Ieza, where he's talking about love, whether he's talking about just going back home, whether he's talking about reflecting on spirituality, which I might say there are strong Christian overtones in this. But I mean, he's a black dude on Xhosa from Ekapa, so most likely and I guess it bleeds into the album. There's a lot of Timo Momomo, you know? There's a lot of real spirited, almost church-like ambience about the album. Like I said, this album positions Lolli Native as a preacher. And if you like your church, if you like your motivation, this is for you. It really is an album that's kind of like a catalog of motivation. I picture Lolli Native wearing a suit for most of these songs and talking to a congregation of people who relate to him in ways that are very palpable. And his choir is led by none other than the master choir conductor, or MT himself, who comes through and delivers some strong hooks on many a track on this project. And I feel like if it wasn't for MT's industry touch, a lot of these songs would be lost to the pop culture sphere, and they'd kind of become a small niche rap that's dedicated, like I said, to people who like their motivation in rap form and who like their rap with a little bit of gospel gusto. But what MT does is that he's able to create melodies that are really catchy. Goddamn, guys, we've got to talk about how good of a songwriter MT is. He's incredible. He gives this project edge. I'm not saying Lolli Native agana nix. He's a rapper with a clear voice, a clear direction. His rap is beyond basic. You can tell this is a guy who's kind of grown through the cypher, understood that he doesn't want to become a part of that grimy scene, but he wants to clean himself up and focus on the money and do it through the rap. And he echoes a lot of that. Lolli Native is about the money. You need to give him his money real quick because he feels that it's worth it. And I feel like his value and his stocks go up by having a cat like MT on his side.
Yeah.
So really, this reminds me of those good old days in hip-hop where you could have one rapper in the forefront, but really being shadowed by somebody who complements his vision well. Like, remember when Raekwon used to release all those projects with Ghostface Killer, just making cameo appearances?
Yeah.
And it worked. It feels like MT and Lolli Native have that kind of brotherhood and relationship, and I hope it blossoms. And I think from that, I'm very comfortable to sit in the pews and watch Lolli Native in his pulpit preaching his gospel, because I mean, to be honest, if you don't go to church for the preaching, you go for the music. And if it's got both elements, then you're in for a treat. So church is in session, Lolli Native is giving us his Bible, his code to living, and MT is busy doing that background echoing, and it's all saying you need to prosper by any means necessary, be a hustler, be about your grind. This project also tends to be a little bit too masculine. It's the voice of a man, but also he kind of doesn't step out of those male tropes. So because of that, I'm giving this one solid 7 out of 10. Great crystal clear production. Vision is executed masterfully. Like I said, only reason why I can't reach beyond 7 is because sometimes as an artist you find a way to make your stories relevant to everybody regardless of age, gender or creed. This album is stuck in a particular kind of Jesus-esque place through a Xhosa lens, being spoken by a man. He's a man, and there's an overwhelming hyper-masculine tone, and sometimes there are things about masculinity that can be disposable. But I'm not here to talk about men being trash. I'm here to talk about Lolli Native giving us a golden project, 7 out of 10. It's been a good season for rap this year, I must say. Proud of everybody doing their thing, being authentic. Thank you.